Hey everyone, it's Sleepy Reader, aka Damien, here in my messy room still. It's a little less messy than the last time I made a video. Um, and I am back with my comic book countdown for this past Wednesday. Super subjective. It was actually a hard week I liked everything I read to a lesser or greater degree, but I had a great time. Nothing was an obvious masterpiece to me either. So it was a little hard to rank things. And so some extra subjectivity came into there. Yeah, subjectivity, not objectivity. I got confused myself for a second there. What does the word subjective mean? But as I always say, and I guess I should keep saying every time for people who might not have watched these videos lately, these are ranked by my personal enjoyment at the time I read them, not in some larger critical picture or anything like that. So totally on me and how I was feeling about the comic I read. That's the way I like to talk about them. And I think of these as my comic book thoughts more than my comic book reviews. So I'll say as much or as little as I want about a given comic, depending on what strikes my fancy. At number 11 is Heavy, which at first, when I read the first page, I thought, I'm going to love this. Look at that. Great colors. Kind of a neat setup. He's in some world between dimensions, traveling throughout space-time, correcting endless mistakes throughout endless timelines. But then immediately on the second page, I'm like, whoa, I don't like that picture very much. That's not a good picture to put as a full-page splash, at least for me. It may have impressed other people. There's a bunch of pages that are good and a bunch of pages that are less good for me. It's like the drawing style is at times out of control and at times in control. The coloring is always really nice. The colorist is Chris Peter. The artist is Eric Donovan, who I've never heard of. I haven't heard of Chris Peter either. The writer I have heard of, Max Bemis. I forget the name of the rock band that he comes from, but I believe he comes from a rock band who's been writing comics quite a bit. This double-page spread kind of has the good and the bad in it art-wise. But the other thing is the story engaged me less as I read on. This is some kind of afterlife, and God or whoever the higher power is sends people throughout the timelines to kill the bad guys. And like I would much rather if it weren't an afterlife in the normal sense and it wasn't about God's justice or something. And maybe it won't turn out to be in the end. I didn't really understand the final page either. I think if I reread it, I'd realize who that was on the final page, some character referred to somewhere earlier on. I did think it was cool, this evil Leonardo Da Vinci that had taken over Europe that he goes in to kill. But it really doesn't, that's kind of a cool page there, up there. It really doesn't make much sense. Why would God want to run things this way? I shouldn't be thinking about that. Oh, that's funny. The Leonardo da Vinci has a phallus at the center of There's a lot of sense of humor here and good stuff. Like I said, I liked every comic book I read this week. But various misgivings made me put this at fairly or unfairly at number 11. Also fairly or unfairly, Batman's Grave number 10, which was a series early on that I was really enjoying, and then it kind of bogged down for me. And by this issue, it seems to be a mix of the good and the bad, or the good and the annoying, or the good and the feeling like it doesn't all connect or make a whole lot of sense, even though it's all supposed to be kind of a logical detective story, or that's the way I took it before this issue. There are a lot of sort of issues about Batman and the police, neither of whom seem as moral as you might like them to be. So that's interesting. But anyway, I just feel like all the pieces feel like they're flying apart instead of coming together. And this is issue 10 of 12. So it just gave me kind of uneasy feeling. There were some cool moments, like when I was going to say Jeeves, Alfred, when Alfred pulls a gun on this bad guy who thinks he's just going to rip him apart. And I thought it was odd. He was shooting him, but there was no blood. And later they say, where does he say? Let's see. Somewhere he says here, there's some kind of plastic bullets. Let's see. Damn it. Pardon me. Frangible plastic bullets. Is that such a thing? Frangible plastic bullets? There was also there was something in here that, I really like this panel where Batman is calling 911 for some cleanup. And the 911 dispatcher goes, "Oh my God, it's him, you guys. His voice is so weird." I just like that. But, and as always, great art by Brian Hitch. A lot of great art in my reading, although I did not totally love the art in Heavy. And I definitely did not like the art in Seven Secrets, particularly the coloring, I think. There's some pages that read better than others. There you can see these two pages are examples of why I don't like the coloring in this comic. And I'm not a huge fan of the art style. I mean, I guess I could take it or leave it. And I know a lot of people love this book, but I just did not find myself getting into it as much as I thought. I don't know if I'll buy issue number 3 or not. It's not on my pull list. Heavy is on my pull list. I'll give it at least another issue tryout. But I don't know. Something is missing that doesn't connect me to the events and characters here. There feels like still a sketchiness about this organization, and by sketchy I mean not properly filled in how it really works and everything. This organization that keeps the 7 secrets. So, yeah, I wasn't feeling it. Nothing bad. Except the art. Well, the color particularly. Once and Future has art I love, color I love, and I would say Tamara Bonvillain, the colorist, this issue was on top of her game really nicely. It's funny, there's a whole style. This is Grendel. There's a whole style of the way monsters are done these days that just seems to be a thing. That monsters didn't used to look like that, but they all kind of have certain things in quality done by different artists in comic books. This is less extreme than some of them, but they all have kind of a gooey, yucky, mushy, liquidy feel, if that makes sense. Anyway, lots of cool stuff here. I think the only reason it didn't, come up, as I said, I like everything here. I didn't rate it even higher. Was just, I don't know. It just feels like the story inched along a very small amount, and I just had less of an exciting time reading it than some of these others. The Possessed, I put in at number 7. So Once and Future was number 8. 7 Secrets was number 9. With a big asterisk, a big footnote. That is, this baby cost $7.99. And I picked it up, and when I had it at the store, it was already on my pull list, because this is a pretty obscure publisher. I don't think my Clover Press, I don't think my store would have gotten it without me ordering it. I saw it in previews, and I thought it sounded cool, and Steve Niles was the writer, who's done a lot of good work. And anyway, I kind of thought it would be like, what do you call it, a perfect bound kind of book like comic book. It's quite, I picked it up at the store. I was like, do I really want $7.99? But it was already on my pull list. But I thought, well, it's kind of thick. But here's the thing, it is padded out. The last third of it is recreating the script, which is kind of nice if you totally love Steve Niles and want to dive into it. But I think this should have been like a $5 book, not an $8 book. It has about 32 pages of actual art and story. Those 32 pages look beautiful. The artist, is there a colorist? Or I think the artist did his own coloring. Never heard of this artist. Gulia Nemeth on the art and coloring. So we've got one of those Holocaust era stories that brings in a Jewish fable, a Jewish legend, the Dybbuk, a demon who eventually possesses this old man. So it was cool, but very carried by the art. My only question, I don't understand why. I mean, they're being chased by the Nazis, and he wants to protect his grandson. But why the Dybbuk or whatever is the choice, letting the Dybbuk possess his body? Because they say that once you're possessed by this evil host, you will only be released by death. So I'm not sure if that's a great way to protect his grandson. You know, what happens when he's dead and there's no one left to protect his grandson? Or if he's just an evil demon until he dies. But it's a two-parter, so it'll be interesting to see where they take it. But, you know, if you could find this for less than $8 or wait for the trade, this is a beautiful, cool kind of book. And so that was number 7. In at number 6 is this new image number 1, Stillwater, written by Chip Zdarsky, art by Ramon K. Perez. I know I've seen Ramon K. Perez art somewhere else. I don't remember if it was like this. Most of his art's real cool, and then every once in a while it'll seem kind of generic. But most of the time I like the style in here. The coloring is really good. The colorist is Mike Spicer. Well, I would say the coloring is strong. Some of the coloring in some of these other books really excited me, but and the story is kind of a classic horror story kind of thing that I really enjoyed. This city or small town cut off from the rest of civilization with a deep, dark secret, and our characters who stumble right in it. The only downside is the two main characters, including it's sort of the supposed good guy and his friend who always gets him into trouble, but really he's not a very good guy either. Neither of them are sympathetic at all to me. I think the fact that he had a girlfriend who broke up with him is supposed to make the dark-haired fellow more sympathetic, but it didn't do much. He's, I don't know, serious drinking problems, a little bit of anger and violence issue problems. I suppose you could say that's typical male problems. But somehow the way Chip Zdarsky painted these characters, I won't feel too bad when bad things happen to them so far. But still, cool concept, fun art. Love that. I'd say that's my cover of the week, I think. Although there were a lot of good covers, too. That was number 6. In at number 5, it's really hard to, rank this. Detective Comics, number 107, 144 pages. Incredible art. Every single artist in here, even John Romita Jr. I didn't mean to be cruel there, but I haven't always liked his artwork in recent years. Bringing in their A game, beautiful coloring and art in every story. Let's see. There's Chris Burnham. But none of the writing kind of tipped the scales for me. There's Walter Simonsen. There were some decent-ish stories here, but nothing knocked my socks off. And I think I had overly high expectations, especially as I thumbed through it and saw all the great art. The art of writing a good 6 or 7 page short story is really gone. A few of them weren't bad. James Tinian did a good job. Grant Morrison mostly did a good job until maybe the last page. There's the James Tinian story with Dead Man with great art by Riley Rossmo. I've heard some people complain about it, but I really like the direction Riley Rossmo's art's taken. It does evoke a little more sort of, Batman, animated, even Brave and the Bold kind of stuff, but in his own quirky flavor. But anyway, that was just one of many. This and the colors of this one are Ivan Placina. Every single story in here had A+ art, so almost I wanted to make this my number one. But most of the stories kind of let me down. So Tinian's story I thought was strong. I thought Marv Wolfman's story was strong in that it didn't try to go big. It was just another Batman adventure. And a lot of people went wrong for me by just trying to make, rather than really make a short story, make a grand statement about Batman. Even it's sometimes almost like an illustrated essay, like this Pete Tomasi one. And Pete Tomasi did really well on the Action Comics 1000 one, but here he didn't hit a home run. I think one of the ones I liked also from the writing point of view was the Kelly Sue DeConnick one, which had this great art by John Romita Jr. And I had some fun I loved the Walt Simonsen art for some reason. I think, part of it is how long I've loved Walt Simonsen, and he's still got it. But it was a Tom King story, and it missed the mark for me, or it was, again, too much trying to make a grand statement instead of telling a good story. But who's this? This one by Jan Jurgens was really promising, and then it turned out to be a teaser for some upcoming series. So that bummed me a little bit. But I'm now curious about the series. It's got Commandy in it. It's got Commandy and Booster Gold. What a combo. And Batman from different timelines. And I guess it's going to be called Generations Future State. So normally you say some special event comic starring Booster Gold, and I'm not too excited, but when you say it's starring Batman, Booster Gold, and Commandy, if that's what it really is, I'm quite interested. And then the final story had kick-ass art from the same team from Once and Future, Dan Mora and Tamara Bonvillain. I'd love to see them as, full-time Batman creators. Although then maybe they wouldn't be on Once and Future, so that would be a shame. But this was just a teaser for some continuing Joker's War stuff. I guess the Joker's War is not quite over. And written by, lost her name in my head, Mariko Tamaki, who's supposed to be a new kind of star writer for DC. So I don't know if she'll be coming on to Batman sometime. But all she was doing was kind of making one little beat that's going to add to the Joker War story, where the Batman has gotten a hold of his little black book. Oh, and then there were some pretty good pinups throughout. Although not a lot of pinups, I expected more. My favorite, here it is, was the Lee Bermejo pinup. That one's awesome. So all in all, this is well worth it. It's the thickest $10 issue that I've ever seen. And like I say, amazing art. Okay, in at number 4, this one ranked very high for me, partially because I read this first issue and the second issue together. I did these two issues just today, and so that was really enjoyable. Cool, high concepts. I feel like, I haven't read a lot of manga, but I feel like this is more the kind of setup that you might see in a manga. Okay, I'm having that QuickTime problem again on my Mac. Better apparently to record on my, $400 iPad than on my $1,000 plus iMac. But anyway, well, it died again. Hopefully third time is a charm. Let's see, where was I? I'm going to sip a matcha iced tea to get my mind straightened up. I was on number 4, Big Girls. And I was saying, I think this might be the kind of story you would more expect in a manga than a American comic. I might be wrong. It's not done the way a manga would be done at all. But I really like the art and the color, which are both by Jason Howard, and the writing. He wrote it himself, and he seems to be a perfectly good writer. I like that there are 2 kind of parallel stories going on here that are intersecting, and each one has a kind of leader-like character who, is merciless about the cause, and another character who's maybe more the hero of each intersecting story, who has more mixed feelings about what's going on and is more the newbie who has to be sort of convinced and cajoled into being on the side of the good guy, bad guy, whichever one you want to call it. So it is really interesting. Inside, Jason Howard says that he's working on issue number 7, so I guess he plans to make this an ongoing. I've seen a lot of people picking this up, so hopefully it's selling well and will go for quite a while. So I thought almost about putting this at number 1 or something, but after reading these 2, I was super excited for some more. It's not a masterpiece, as I said, but it's a lot of fun. It's good art. I've enjoyed Jason Howard's art a lot on the 2 projects I've seen him with Warren Ellis, and it's good to see that he can write well too. So the thing, I mentioned how a lot of monsters look the same. The monsters in here, the men that turn into giant monsters, they kind of turn into what is now almost the standard comic book monster, these kind of giant, gooey, stretchy looking things. So see them a lot in a lot of places. Jason Howard does it very well. But I think that would be if I had one caveat, I would hope Jason Howard would have been more inventive with his monsters. But not a big complaint at all. I've always, since being a little kid, loved giant monsters. I used to play a game with my daughter where I would pretend to be a giant robot, and I would walk around the house going, this is when she was younger, but occasionally I'll still pull it out. Giant robot. It would make her giggle, and I would pretend I was going to step on her and make sound effects like I was smashing buildings. Yes. Okay. Back to being dignified and old. Billionaire Island, I put at number 3. This is the final issue. I think this is it. I can't imagine they'll go back to it. I like it kind of had a double wrap up, a pessimistic wrap up, and then kind of based on this business dog created your kind of miraculous cure for the evil billionaires. And it was a bit of a cheat, I suppose, but I actually enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing the billionaires get their comeuppance and have the whole stock market fall apart on them, and their whole scheme about how you treat people who aren't billionaires backfire on them. So that was good. This was, aside from the fact that it's a black comedy on a super depressing set of subjects, it was also always a fun read and funny. And so I'm really glad I got it in single issues. I think it'll be a good read in a trade too, but I think if you can get the single issues, that's a fun way to read it. This one had a weird backup, actually, which seemed to be a biographical comic, and I didn't quite get, I guess it was maybe a daughter talking with her father about an acting job he once had. I didn't quite get the point of it. It was maybe I should reread it. It was interesting, and a weird kind of thing to have in the back as a backup in Billionaire Island. But that's one of the things I like about Ahoy. The publisher Ahoy Comics, they often surprise me with what ends up in their comics. Okay, these last 2. I switched back and forth, number 1, number 2, number 1, number 2, as I was making my little stack trying to decide. And in the end, I decided to put Batman 99, I think the penultimate issue, so to speak, of the Joker War. Or at least, I don't know. It seemed like they're promoting the Joker War in that detective comic, so you'd think it would be going on longer. But anyway, this seems to be the penultimate issue of the Joker War, Batman 99. I assume it's all going to come together in 100, probably be an extra priced, thicker issue. We get great art, fun. James Tynion does a really good job at this. You know, I still have my same complaint about this, of too many Joker stories, too many what I call Joker apocalypse stories, where, you know, Joker brings the entire city of Gotham to its knees, into chaos. But, you know, other than that, and I've gotten over that for the most part. I am enjoying this a lot. And the only moment where I didn't really enjoy it was when we have this kind of Joker's monologue of how he's revealing what the city really is and all of that. And I felt like that was old hat and kind of too easy. I feel like we've seen these kind of bad guy monologues before, and I thought that was a bit of a waste of space, or just something to do while he just shows all the chaos around the city. Incredible artwork by Jimenez and his colorist Tobe Moro. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I hate these ads that look like comics, or sometimes they'll look like a double-page spread. Sometimes they'll look like a comic in the middle of your comic. I mean, I guess we used to have those in the old day with Hostess Twinkie ads, but I don't know. It just gets worse and worse. And I think it stands out because all the indie comics don't do that. You get no ads. You're buying. If I bought the trade, which would be cheaper, I would get no ads. If I got the digital version, which, you know, I don't know. Here's another set of ads. It interrupts the flow of this incredibly good story. I feel like it's insulting to the readers and even the creators when they're charging so much for the story. You can just put the ads in the back. They're all just ads for DC. You can't say, well, they need these ads to be able to afford to print this comic, because they're all house ads. I think every single ad that breaks up this story is a house ad. The only non-house ads might be the ones on the inside covers. Although, well, that's kind of a house ad, but it might be paid for by Warner Brothers there. But yeah, so I don't know. That could really help keep me on both Marvel and DC Comics if the ads weren't breaking up the stories. Because I'm paying a lot of money for these books, and they're giving me less pages than the indies too. But that said, this was a really good comic. If you're a Batman fan, this has been, I think it's, for me, for my Batman fandom, this has been a really fun run. I hope Tynion's not leaving after 100, but that could be the case. Okay, and then I finally decided to put the Immortal Hulk at number 1. It was a great story by Al Ewing, brings together a lot of stuff that he's been playing with for a long time. It doesn't answer questions yet, but it brings us up to another level with the whole Green Door and the revival of the Hulks and all of that. And the art was incredible. I love Bennett's art. I love the coloring by Paul Mounts. I don't always love... Paul Mounts seems to be the classic Marvel colorist, but he really brings it and makes it work in these on this Joe Bennett artwork. And Joe Bennett not only has a cool sort of drawing style, but I love his layouts. And Al Ewing, you know, is juggling all these balls and making it really interesting. The Absorbing Man is going to be, I forget what the Absorbing Man absorbed to become that. Some gamma radiation and maybe a hurricane. So anyway, a lot of fun. Really enjoyed this issue. And it, you know, it gains a lot from evoking in me a lot of the best of what this whole Immortal Hulk run has been. We're on issue number 37, so I guess there's 13 more issues. They've said 50 is the last issue. I'm going to be really sad when it ends, but of course, all good stories must have an ending. Uh, it is interesting because when the Immortal Hulk started, there was a sense of one and done stories, and that's completely lost. I think that's been lost for a lot of issues now. And I do miss that, and I kind of wish they could have built their whole sort of larger tapestry on the back of one and done stories, but that might have been too much to ask. And anyway, it's still my number one. And you know what? That could also be the cover of the week. A very cool Alex Ross cover. But I leave official covers of the week to other people, like Bullseye Bob at Everything Comics. So thank you so much for joining me. I will be back soon. I will try to stitch together these 3 videos. I will throw my Mac in the garbage and just buy another computer. I'm kidding about that because this computer should have a lot more life into it. Okay, talk to y'all later.